the original work of Su Qing's autobiographical novel 10 Years of Marriage, Chapter 20. Husband's occupation. After meeting Xian, Siri looked at each other speechless. The house was in a mess, with cigarette ashes in front of the bed, beer bottles next to the hearse, and peanuts all over the floor. The third wife heard the sound and came down, wearing school uniforms all over her body. I couldn't help being surprised. Just when I was about to ask Xian, she gave me a look. I coughed quickly, and the third wife glanced at me and said, "Your body is still in good shape. Okay, why don't you bring your new little sister?" I felt even more miserable after hearing this. I was even willing to tell her in detail, but only vaguely replied that I would keep him at home. After talking for a while, she also told me that Mr. Zhang had passed away and that his nephew had left from N-City. In the mainland, I now knew the reason for her wearing a morning hat, and I was worried for her that no one would take care of her from now on. After Xianzi returned to Shanghai, he did not hire a maid. He ate out by himself and sent his clothes to the laundry. Everything in the kitchen was used by the Zhang family, and some of it was missing. Of course, Xian didn't care. Everyone was polite to me when I came, and they were too embarrassed to ask questions. He is still teaching in a middle school, with a monthly salary of more than 70 yuan, and it is very hard for him to work alone. Once he was over his illness and slept on the bed, the third wife and others did not notice him. He was hungry all day and again. Half the time, I had to struggle out to drink a bottle of milk the next afternoon, and vomited again when I got home. I couldn't help crying while listening to it, so I decided not to use my aunt and make it myself. When it comes to cooking, washing, mopping the floor, cleaning the house, etc., she does everything herself and feels like a virtuous housewife. But things are not that simple. After getting up in the morning, I was busy lighting the coal stove, making tea, and cooking rice. I was in such a mess that I could no longer have such a peaceful mind when I combed my hair, washed my face, and powdered my face. Then Xian got up, and I was busy taking care of him, but I looked a little unhappy because I was really tired. Xian said, "Please don't be too busy, I will do it myself." But I saw that he was not doing it to cherish me, but was dissatisfied with my inability to be nice. So I thought that you might as well do it yourself. No matter what you do, I'll do mine. So I make another bed and sweep the floor. After emptying the spittoon, Xian found it even more troublesome to see me walking back and forth in front of him. Sometimes he even skipped breakfast and went to teach in a hurry. He often didn't come back for lunch. After I bought the side dishes, I had to pick and wash them, which made me dizzy. I no longer had the energy to make a proper soup for myself, so I had to take a few bites of rice to count. After taking the order, I still have to pick up the table and wash the dishes. My hands are greasy and disgusting. In the afternoon, I had to mop the floor and wash clothes. And sometimes a guest suddenly came. I went to chat and laugh with him again, and I was busy going out to buy snacks. After I left, I was afraid that the guests would be bored waiting alone at home for a long time, so I hurried back. I was really tired. By the time he came home at night, he was exhausted and wanted some comfort. But why shouldn't I feel the same way? Therefore, everyone understood in their hearts and wanted to do it reluctantly. However, in the end, it was always a dissatisfaction, and each other started to resent each other. Xian said that he would rather I didn't have to work hard, and just chatted with him happily for a few words. I think they have done their best for you, and you are still not satisfied, which is too heartless. One day Xian said to me, "I have an opportunity to work as a capital clerk in a foreign bank. I will get 100 yuan a month and bonuses. What do you think?" I was overjoyed when I heard that, so I suggested that I go to the countryside to get the job first. "Come back to your little daughter." Xian said that it would be better to wait until she is weaned and ask them to take her out. It is important to hire Anne first. I really can't stand your behavior when you are tired. After hearing this, I started to make a fuss and refused to listen to him. "Look, you haven't started overseas business yet, and you are already hating your wife's bad words. Will you still be able to live my life in the future?" He couldn't comfort me by explaining again and again. This foreign bank is actually a Chinese bank, which is quite large, but the manager is very small. Xian is a smart person and is good at understanding the psychology of his boss, so the manager really likes him. After work in the afternoon, he could have gone home, but the manager invited him to have tea and dance, so of course he had to accompany him. There is an aunt in the family who is childish and often does wrong things, but she is still honest after all. Xian was not at home, so I gave my aunt detailed guidance on how to do things. The guidance was more difficult than doing it myself, and sometimes it made me angry. I want to take less care of her later. I am really unwilling to let my aunt eat in vain, so I often think of unnecessary things to ask her to do. If she doesn't do it well, she has to teach her or scold her, so I was very troubled. Sometimes when Xian comes back late at night, he can't help but turn his anger on his head and keep mumbling. Xian also lost his temper and said, "I have worked hard outside and come back, and you still have to do things horizontally and vertically. I can't stand this kind of woman." I curled my lips and said to him, "You don't necessarily have to do things, even if you come back from the dance hall at midnight. Will I wait for you silently?" He said, "So what if you go to the dance hall? Why don't you go there as a family of 3? Keep on living. If you have the ability to make money, I'm willing to be a writer for you." So instead of accompanying his manager, he often went to have fun with his friends. Sometimes even when he wasn't having fun, I assumed he was having fun. In the spring of the 7th year of Gansu's reign, Nanjing and other places became quiet, and people from in-city moved to Shanghai one after another. Minghua followed his brother's advice, changed to a university in Shanghai, and temporarily stayed at my house. He was still as lively and simple as before the war, and he often expressed patriotic theories. Although they were too superficial, they were sincere after all. He also didn't take Xian's urbanization for granted, and often secretly tried to persuade him. But Xian just laughed and thought you kids didn't know anything. At that time, Xian had already done some business with the help of his manager and earned several thousand yuan. I couldn't help but feel proud. He has regarded being a teacher as a hopeless thing, while Minghua and I regard it as very noble. Therefore, whenever the 3 of us sit together and I talk about my previous teaching life, Minghua always listens. It was very interesting, but Xian was deeply unhappy. He felt that I had lost face by living in Kasu, so I was quite unhappy. Minghua sympathized with me and helped me with small things. He seemed very happy and natural living in my house. Although my aunt is still there, it doesn't matter as the day goes by, but I gradually don't pay much attention to it. As long as I can't see it with my eyes and hear it with my ears, I will be pure, so I gradually gain weight. And my face seemed plump. On an early summer evening, I was wearing a light blue linen shirt with white flowers. Xian looked at me for a while and said, "I would like to enjoy being with you more often. It's a pity that we are too busy for the joy of family." Minghua advised him with a serious face. "Why don't you become a lawyer sometime? Freelancing is more unfettered, and you don't need to sit in an office. You can talk about it. It feels good." Xian also agreed. He said to me at night, "Let's socialize more with others from now on. The most important thing to make money is to go around in circles, and people are hot." So we split up to look for acquaintances. I only found a few old classmates, and he could only talk to people from the previous university. Contact the professors. It is easy to find hope when looking for someone, and it is also easy to disappoint people. At first, they will only talk to you in an easy way, and then they will make you feel edgy. You will treat guests, some things, and formally ask for his help. I have just told you that there are many difficulties, and perhaps many misfortunes, that make you unable to make progress and unwilling to give up. So you lose a lot of ideas and material. It is not until you have hit the wall several times that you can see the reality more clearly. But I felt like I was looking around and didn't know where to go. Although Xian is shrewd, he still misleads others because of his excessive enthusiasm. Sometimes he thinks that things are stable, so he buys wine and food to celebrate, talking about plans and having many dreams every day. Even Minghua became excited and disappointed along with us, making him lose his mood when studying and doing homework. When he was very proud, Xian Yi couldn't help but say a few words to the manager of the foreign bank. The manager was very well behaved and knew that he was not a stable person, so he took advantage of the situation and made him the director of the legal department in name, reducing his salary and making him the director of the legal department. The capital position was completely assigned to someone else. Only now did Xian feel regretful and anxious. But now that the matter had come to this point, There was nothing he could do. So Jing hurriedly looked for an apartment and decided to take a risk and officially become a lawyer. We looked at many houses, and some had dirty alleys, some lacked sanitary facilities, some faced north, and some had inconvenient transportation, which made us confused. Xian finally told me that there is only one principle that I must adhere to. That is, the appearance should be magnificent, and the content should be less enjoyable. Minghua didn't have classes, so he often went out with me to look for it. One time he came in excitedly and said to me, "There is a large bungalow in the west section of Shifei Road, with several rooms for rent. Why don't we go and take a look?" Xian happened to be not at home at that time, so I followed him out. It was a large bungalow with lush flowers and trees. It passed through a wide crooked road and had several exquisite rooms facing west. It was said that the old tenants were still there, but they were moving in less than 10 days. The government notified the owner to pay for the rent early. We knocked on the door and said sorry. We came to see the house. A woman promised in a sharp voice, and then the housewife opened the door with one hand, her chest open, slippers on, and a baby in her arms. Although her yellow face looked haggard, her dark eyes were still gleaming. "Isn't that Luoyang?" She grabbed me and sat me down in the room. She didn't care that Ming Huadong was looking at me and looking at the size of the room. She just asked me a series of questions about how I got here. "Have you lived in Shanghai for a long time? How many children do you have?" Then she told me in a low voice, with tears in her eyes, that she had been married to Yu Bai for 4 years, and Yu Bai didn't love her at all. He only missed Liu Michuan, so she was in pain, even though she now had 2 children. My daughter, thinking of this, she had already heard Yu Bai's voice loudly asking in the back room who was talking too much. So Nan wiped her tears and timidly carried the baby in. She seemed to be telling him something in a low voice, but he didn't hear it and then asked roughly, "Who is it?" She seemed to say my name, and there was a rush of footsteps. The sound came flying out of the back room, and it was Yu Zixi holding a pipe in his mouth, saying happily but with surprise, "Is it you? Is it really you? I haven't seen him for many years." Later, Yu Bai told me that there were new houses under construction near Lafayette Road, with a fee of 3,000 yuan per house, and the form and color were quite beautiful. He also said that they would soon move to a nearby place, so that they could be neighbors and get in touch with each other easily. I can't forget the day we entered our new house. It was the Mid-Autumn Festival in the 28th year of the Republic of China, and the cool moon shone silvery at night. Luoyang came with Yu Bai, and many other relatives and friends. Everyone sat neatly in the living room. There were flowers on the table, silver shields and cups on the shelves, and a few calligraphy and paintings hanging on the walls. They were all celebrating a new home and opening a new business. There were so many frames that couldn't be hung for display, otherwise they would fill up several rooms. Our house has 3 floors. Xian and I live on the 2nd floor, which is the largest and brightest room. We have installed newly rented water fixtures throughout the house, and the window curtains are all made of colorful flowers and light silk. Our living there was like reliving the dream of the bride and groom. Soon I adopted my 3rd daughter, Ling Ling. Xian asked people everywhere to recruit legal advisors. Some offered 100 yuan, some offered 200 yuan, and the one who offered 500 yuan was considered the most polite. They were all for the whole year, and the introducer still responded. I excitedly helped him fill out the consultant certificate. The paper was printed and readily available at the court, but the writing had to be more correct. Before I started writing, I always had to waste a dozen sheets of history paper and ended up writing it down. Still couldn't do it. I felt frustrated again and again, waiting for Xian to comfort and praise me. Hu Duo's family is a legal consultant. We always have to go out to eat or watch a movie, and there is not much money left. We often discuss legal issues that don't happen very often, thinking that being a lawyer is the best way to win by surprise. But in fact, even ordinary cases don't happen very often. Finally, a friend or relative said that a client would be introduced tomorrow. We were busy tidying up the living room. If we found that the teacups were dirty, we would quickly replace them. Or if we felt that the teacups were not exquisite, we would buy another set. We repeatedly told the servants to be polite that day. Don't make others laugh. I said I would just sit next to you and act as a temporary secretary. However, Xian insisted and said that it would make people laugh if they recognized me. Who would have thought that when the appointed time came, the people waiting left and right didn't come, and it was hard to rush them. So I had to pretend to be nonchalant and flip through the 6 Laws complete book. I held Ling Ling in my arms and anxiously came down to see the scene again and again. I was afraid that the woman was sitting by the desk with her child in her arms and was unseemly. She repeatedly waved to me to come up quickly, but I didn't dare to ask. Only the maid was impatient and chirped. He said, "My teacups have been washed and the vegetable juices have been soaked. If you don't come at this time." What a big show. After hearing this, I couldn't help but said angrily, "Who asked you to wait? Just do your job as usual. When people come, the young master will naturally call you for tea." Xian just kept silent inside. I knew he was feeling sad. It turned out that he just said it casually and didn't take it to heart. Maybe he had already signed the letter of appointment elsewhere at this moment. Maybe he had hired a lawyer earlier just because he was worried and wanted to ask someone to discuss it. Later he felt that there was no big need. Maybe he didn't trust this place at all. So he didn't coming. Every time when Dangshan ranged the bait and couldn't wait for the fish to take the bait, he would always raise his hat and go out with a sullen face. I was afraid that instead of drinking, he must have gone somewhere to relax and unwind. It's sad, but I can't bear to stop it. I was very surprised. There were many big lawyers in Shanghai who often published notices about being appointed as legal advisors to so-and-so, or representing so-and-so, etc. I was very envious. I said they were probably all proficient in law. So why don't I take a good look at it too? Can these kinds of books help Xian file lawsuits in the future? But Xian said, they are not proficient in the law. It's just that there are many roads and they can go round everywhere. So he said, it's better to go to the barrister's office and become an assistant first. I have to get to know some people first. But I pointed out an advertisement in the newspaper for a lawyer seeking help. Xian excitedly went to contact him and told me about it. My enthusiasm turned cold for a moment. It turns out that the so-called lawyer asking for help is not the same thing. The other is to hire someone to do business for him, and then settle the accounts accordingly. There is no salary or other items. I said, we have our own cases and we don't know how to handle them. Who will settle the accounts for you? So, I gave up this idea. Later, the manager of the foreign bank still looked up to him and discussed with him all matters, such as contracts in the bank. Hearing that he was very organized, he gradually entrusted him to handle several things. The results seemed to be satisfactory for each one. As a result, we received more cases and gained more experience. But in fact, I feel another kind of pain. That is, I feel that what he and others are planning seems to be distorting the facts to interfere with the legal provisions. And of course, whoever gives you money must do his best to relieve the person of the past, or being caught in a crime is a matter of concern for one's conscience. When such a person was gone, I pointed to the gleaming silver shield on the stand and said, aren't you the one who protects human rights and upholds justice? Xian, I think you should. But Xian immediately interrupted me with a smile and said, I know that I should help debtors so that they don't have to pay their debts, and murderers so that they don't have to pay with their lives. Otherwise, why would you pay us to be lawyers? I fell silent.
All right, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.